Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and this week I'm going to weld up the roll cage and then I'm going to start fitting all the panels the way they should be. Okay, as you saw last week, I got the cage all tacked into place. Everything is the way I want it, so now it's time to weld it up. But before I actually properly weld it up, I need to do some practice welding because I want to make sure these welds are right. All right, I've got a few test pieces here. I've got a bit I've notched out so that I can practice my notch welding, and I've also got another flat bit that I can mount onto my old mounting plate, just to get some practice and some difficult angles, and just trying to get some nice, clean, neat welds. One of the most important things, I am a self-taught welder. I have very little idea, but one thing I do know is make sure you get everything as clean as possible before you start. And that also includes the tip of your welder. Make sure everything is all nice and clean and spatter free, and just cleaner is better and you'll get much better welds. Okay, I just did a bunch of practice welds, and as you can see, some are good, some are not so good, but basically it was just playing around with my settings, trying to get the settings right. But now I'm happy with my settings. It's time to pull the cage out and start welding it together. All right, I've cleaned up all of the joins, so now it's time to weld, and hopefully I can do some nice, neat welds. All right, as you can see, the welds are not perfect. Some of them I might want to grind back and redo. As you can see, yeah, not perfect. The hardest parts really are these really tight areas in here, because you can't really get the welder in there. So, and where I've joined welds, I'm not the greatest welder. Never have professed to be. So, as I said, most of them are pretty good, but some will, as I said, some I will probably grind back and redo. So the next test is to see how much this has actually moved and see if it'll go back in the car. Okay, so I all bolted back in nicely, which is great. So now I need to make up the end caps for these mounting feet. So I'll just use my CAD templates again. And then I can weld in these all the mounting points, and the cage is done. All right, most of the welding is done now. Most of these are mounted in. I've just got the last little bits behind the cage, so I've given it time for everything to cool down. Now it's time to take the cage back out and do the last little bit of welding, and then the cage is completely done. So the mounting boxes are in, the mounting plates are all done as well. Yeah, not gorgeous, but they'll do the job. So moving on. Okay, so now we've got rid of all of the external rust on the car, and we've got the cage done. My next thing is to start getting it ready for paint. Now, I've got to make sure before I get to the painting stage that every panel fits correctly. That means everything lines up the way it's supposed to, everything, because I've done lots of patching and welding, and I've got to bolt everything back on the car and line everything up. And that is why I went to Zach's, if you saw my barn find episode a few weeks ago, and I scrounged for a bunch of bits and pieces, and that is now time to start fitting things like door striker plates so I can close the doors. Let's just start bolting a few bits and pieces together and see what I can come up with. All right, with a bit of fettling and manhandling, I've managed to get this rear hatch to sit reasonably well. The panel gaps are pretty decent. There's a few inconsistencies along the top here that I might have to try and panel bead out a bit more later, see what I can do. But that is looking a lot better. The next thing I've got to look at, and that I could possibly get some of your opinions on, is the rear bumper. So basically the rear bumper bolts on to the rear about there, and these pieces sort of wrap around the side, something along those lines. I can either sort this bumper out and get it right and bolt it on, or I can delete it completely, and by removing these patches here, just I'll patch over them, cut them out and patch over them, patch over here, and just have a straight, smooth rear end. I'm sort of of two minds. I could go either way. Either way, let me know what you think. Should I get rid of it? Should I keep it? I'm definitely keeping the front one because it doesn't look right without the front bumper breaking up the between the grille and the lower rear lip. So it does look good with the front bar on, but the rear, yeah, I can go either way. So let me know. Now the rear hatch is looking really good. My next job is to start tackling these doors. Now they're not lining up very well at the moment. When it's sort of level here at the top, this you can see there probably that this is sticking out a long way. The door's also sitting down too far. So for starters, it needs some adjustment, but I think it's also slightly twisted as well because it sits out a long way here from the bottom, whereas this end sitting pretty much level where it's supposed to. So I need to get the bottom edge of this door to lined up nicely and get the whole thing right. And it might take some twisting and tweaking to get it right, but before I can do that, I need to be able to close it. So I need to refit the latch assembly. Okay, so I'm adjusting this door striker plate, and this is the way I like to do it. I've put some tape on and sort of just put some rough marks around the tape just to sort of give me an idea of how far I'm moving it each time, because otherwise you can just sort of move it up too far, back too far. Like, you need a point of reference so you can move it just incrementally and get the panel gaps right. And I've done the same in here. Now I've played around with it. I've got the lines much better. This panel gap here is not too bad now, except for down the bottom here, which is probably more to do with my repair than with the door itself. But if you have a look along the side, it sits good at the top. It's a little bit shallow there, but not too bad. Coming down, the door sits a bit proud here, and then coming out to prouder down the bottom. So the door's got a bit of a twist in it. A bit of not so gentle persuasion should get it where I want it. That's really dumb. That bent way easier than I thought. Look how far that's sitting in now. That was pretty stupid. Time to beat it back out again. Idiot. So a bit of gentle caressing does wonders. That line is now getting very, very good. It's maybe a little bit shy there. I might have to finesse that a bit more, but pretty much the rest of the way down, it's really good. And the line all the way along the bottom is all really good. So The only issue I have is down in this bottom corner. I'll show you. Besides the welds that I've cracked here that I've got to come back and repair, this corner that I fabricated is just sitting a bit too tight, but I made this whole corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the door and peel it back from behind and knock it back up to this line, and then it should have a nice neat panel gap the whole way along. This is where, in my infinite wisdom, I forgot to turn the microphone on again. But you can see here where I repaired the corner, and now I've got a nice even panel gap all the way around, so it's time to move over to the other side. Alright, still no microphone, but now we're over the other side, and we have similar issues to the passenger side where the door is twisted, and it's going to need a little bit of persuasion to get it to fit properly. Now the back of the door is lined up nicely, and you can see we've got an issue here that there's a tight panel gap at the bottom, and then it flares out wider as it goes up to the top. And this shows that there is obviously a twist in the front guard that I have to now try and unbolt and see if I can tweak it and get it so it all lines up. Okay, now I've got the microphone back working again. I've taken the pressure off of this, the bolting points on the front guard, and I've got a much more even panel gap there. It's probably still a little bit big, but I can adjust the whole door down. This end's probably a bit tight, so that's easy enough to adjust it, the whole door this way. It's just more getting it even. All right, this is looking really good. Now I've got my panel gaps all lined up nicely, nice even panel gaps front and rear. I am pretty happy with that, so this side's looking good. It's time to move over to the other side. Okay, that is much better, much more even panel gap there, all the way around. It's a little bit wider than I would like, but they're even from one side to the other, so that is what I am happy about. It is really painful working here today. Those whirlybirds are supposed to help, but it's quite still today, so it's 30 degrees outside and 42 inside. Okay, so getting the panels all fitting perfectly is always a matter of working from the back towards the front, because the rear is obviously fixed. Now I've got to the bit that I've been putting off. This front bonnet, I was tempted to buy a reproduction one, which is $1,200 odd, which is pretty expensive. I've got to have one last go at repairing this. The issue I have with it is that this curve here, this shouldn't curve like this. It should be almost flat. And this beak curves down just a little bit too far. What I need to do is I need to pull it up. The issue I've had is I've been trying to just physically pull it up, and with all my strength, I can't quite get enough of it. What I'm thinking is that because it's reinforced under here, I've got the bonnet reasonably flat, but the reinforcing is all buckled down underneath. My idea is to try using a jack off of something on an angle down on that sort of angle underneath the bonnet and pushing up and forward to try and get rid of this this curve. That's my last idea. So failing that, I have to buy a new bonnet, but I've got to give it a go, don't I? So I'm going to try and rig up a jack under here somehow and sort of jack and push this up and forward and see if that fixes anything. Okay, let me show you my dodgy contraption. So I've got a little block of wood down on the nose of the bonnet down in here. I'm going to press the jack against that and against the base of this timber here and try and push against, the weight is going to be supported against this firewall back here, and try and push the nose of this bonnet forward. Well, because that contraption didn't work. I think I'm fighting a losing battle here, and I might have to bite the bullet and buy a repro one, which I really didn't want to do. I really didn't want to give up on this, particularly after all the time I spent on getting the dents out. But ultimately, if the shape is that far out, it's just never going to look right. So, anyway, that's all the time I have this week. I suppose it's time for Fun Facts with Mrs. Jeff.
Hey guys, the Z432 is one of the most desirable and rarest of the Zs ever produced. These cars come with a dual overhead cam, 160 horsepower, 2-litre straight six out of the Skyline GTR. And they were also fitted with magnesium wheels as standard. The name 432 refers to the 4 valves, 3 carburetors and 2 camshafts. Approximately 420 were built, and some were even used by the police in Japan.
All right, guys. I'm done for another week. Again, I'm exhausted. This heat just takes it out of me. Not sure what I'm going to do with the bonnet, but at least I'm really happy with how the doors came out and how the doors and the front guards and everything lined up. So I'm starting to get some really nice panel gaps there, which is what I wanted. Next week, I think I may even start building the booth again and start getting ready to actually put some epoxy on the car. As always, if you want to help the channel out, please go down into the link in the description below and visit our store. You can buy some cool shirts, tartan fan, or coffee cups or hoodies. And as always, you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram. All right, guys. See you later.